A large crowd of people had gathered in a big field. The noise, screams, and angry voices echoed all around. It seemed as if the entire empire had united against one person. In the very center of the field, a tall wooden platform had been erected. On that platform, a girl was bound with thick iron chains. She looked to be around 19 or 20 years old. Her long silver-white hair was disheveled, cascading over her shoulders and face. The same people who once praised her beauty were now looking at her with eyes filled with hatred. Her blue eyes had turned completely red from continuous crying. There was pain in those eyes, betrayal, and a loneliness that was difficult to express in words. Her mouth was gagged with a thick cloth, preventing her from speaking. She could not defend herself even if she wanted to. She could not shout that she was innocent, but no one present there was interested in listening to her. The people in the crowd were continuously shouting, "Death to the traitor! Punish the traitor! Kill her now! Such a daughter has no right to live!" One voice after another was ringing in her ears. Every word was stabbing her heart like a sharp dagger. Still, in some corner of her mind, a small hope was still alive. A hope that, perhaps, at the last moment, someone would listen to her. Perhaps someone would stand up for her. Perhaps her father would believe in her. Just then, suddenly, silence fell over the entire field. A heavy and authoritative voice echoed. Everyone immediately looked in that direction. There stood a tall and imposing figure, the ruler of the Bhairav Empire, Maharaja Abhay Pratap Singh. His face bore the usual sternness. His sharp blue eyes could instill fear in anyone. He slowly moved forward. With each step, the atmosphere of the entire field grew heavier. Princess Shivangi's heart began to race. She looked toward her father. A final glimmer of hope shone in her eyes. She felt, perhaps today, perhaps this time, her father would listen to her. But in the next moment, the Maharaja stopped right in front of her. He looked at Shivangi for a few moments. Then, in a cold and harsh voice, he said, "I wish a girl like you were never our daughter." As soon as she heard this, time seemed to stop. Princess Shivangi's eyes widened. All the color drained from her face. The last remaining hope in her heart shattered at that moment. It felt as if someone had crushed her heart in their hands. From her own father. Hearing such words from her own father. That pain was impossible to express in words. Tears streamed down her eyes. But this time, those tears held not just sorrow. They also carried the pain of broken trust. She just stared blankly at Maharaja Abhay Pratap. Now, nothing remained within her. No hope, no trust, no dreams. Just then a girl rushed in. She took the Maharaja's hand with great affection. It was Princess Priya. Concern was etched on her face. She said, "Father, why are you standing here? You shouldn't be here. It's very dangerous." Her voice had such innocence that anyone would believe her words. Saying this, she led the Maharaja away from there. But as soon as her gaze met Shivangi's, a very faint, cunning smile appeared on her lips. No one else saw that smile, but Shivangi did. And at that moment, she understood everything. After this, the Maharaja ordered the soldiers. Princess Shivangi's head should be severed. Upon hearing this, the people present in the field began to cheer joyfully. While for Shivangi, this was the final decision of her life. The soldiers moved forward. They unshackled her and took Shivangi to the other end of the platform. There, a large gallows and a place for execution had been prepared. Shivangi was made to kneel. Her head was bowed onto a wooden plank. The sky was clear, the sun was shining. But Shivangi felt as if the entire world had plunged into darkness. She closed her eyes and silently asked herself, "What was our mistake, that we are receiving such a punishment, such humiliation, such disgrace? Even my own father did not believe in me. What was our mistake?" Tears continued to flow from her eyes. Just then her gaze fell on Princess Priya, standing at a distance. Priya was watching her, and there was a victorious smile on her face. Seeing that smile, the suppressed anger within Shivangi flared up again. The flames of revenge ignited in her eyes. She silently vowed, "We gave you so much love. We considered you our sister. And in return, you gave us this. We will never forget. Never! If we get another chance, we will bring the truth to light." At that moment, a shining sharp sword rose into the air. The sun's rays fell on its blade, making it shine. The entire field stood breathless, and in the next moment, the sword fell. Everything came to an end. Princess Shivangi's head was severed from her body. The entire field echoed with cheers. But at that moment, for some reason, a strange pain rose in Maharaja Abhay Pratap's heart. A pain so intense that for a moment he found it difficult to breathe. His eyes became moist, his heart filled with an unknown fear and regret. But in the next moment, he concealed his emotions. He put on the same stern face that had become his identity over the years. Meanwhile, all around was only darkness, deep, endless, terrifying darkness. Shivangi felt as if she was falling into an abyss. Her head was pounding with excruciating pain. The pain was so intense that she felt her head would burst. She could not understand what was happening. Suddenly, the pain intensified, so much so that she abruptly opened her eyes. And as soon as her eyes opened, she was stunned. Above her hung a massive golden chandelier. Countless crystals embedded in the chandelier sparkled in the morning light. Shivangi's breath caught in her throat. She looked around in panic. This was not a prison. This was not the afterlife. This was a very beautiful room. The room was furnished with expensive furniture, silk curtains, beautiful paintings, and every kind of royal comfort. She was lying on a large, soft bed. For a few moments, she just stared at the room. Then suddenly, her eyes widened. Because she recognized this room very well. This was her room, the same room, where she used to live, when she was only 12 years old. Her lips trembled. What? Is this a dream? She said in a low voice. But there was no answer. In disbelief, Shivangi immediately got up from the bed. She began to look around the room, sometimes touching the wall, sometimes the table, sometimes the curtains, as if she wanted to convince herself that this was all real. And just then, her gaze fell on a large mirror in the room. She slowly walked up to it and stood in front of it, and as soon as she saw herself, she was completely stunned. In the mirror, she did not see a 19-year-old princess. There stood a small but extremely beautiful princess of 12 or 13 years. Her long white hair was shining. Her deep blue eyes were as clear as before. Her face had not yet shown the marks of life's harshness. Seeing this, Shivangi's breath stopped. Her heart began to race. What? Have we really come back? The words slipped out of her lips, and just then, her gaze fell on the bandage tied around her head. As soon as she saw the bandage, countless memories of the past rushed back to her mind at lightning speed, and her face suddenly became serious. As soon as she saw the bandage, memories of the past began to swirl in front of Princess Shivangi's eyes like a movie. Her face gradually paled. The wonder and disbelief that had been on her face moments ago were now replaced by deep sadness and pain. She slowly returned to the bed and sat on its edge. Her fingers instinctively began to touch the bandage on her head. And just then, everything came back to her. This is the same day, she softly told herself. Her voice was trembling. This is the same day when she had made a very big mistake to gain her father's love and attention. At that time, she was just a little girl. A girl who was yearning for a loving word from her father. A girl who hoped every day that perhaps today her father would smile at her. Perhaps today he would lovingly stroke her head. Perhaps today he would call her his daughter. But that never happened. Days passed, months went by, and with each passing day, her hope dwindled a little more. Finally, one day, when she saw no other way out, she made a dangerous decision. Standing at the top of the palace's high stairs, she looked down. She remembered her heart racing very fast. She was scared. But that fear was overshadowed by her desire for her father's love. She believed that if she got hurt, the Maharaja would surely come to her. He would worry about her. He would lift her in his arms, and perhaps for the first time, he would see her as his daughter. In that hope, she had jumped, but she did not understand how high the stairs were. As she fell, it felt as if the whole world was spinning, and then, a terrible pain. So terrible that she had screamed. After that, everything had gone hazy. She remembered that when she opened her eyes again, the first thing she looked at was the door of her room. She had hoped that her father would be standing there, but there was no one, only the nurse. the same nurse who had sat by her side all night, taking care of her. That day, her little hope had shattered once again. Remembering this, tears filled Shivangi's eyes. She closed her eyes. Now that she had recalled her entire past life, she understood what her greatest weakness had been. She was always ready to do anything to gain her father's love, and others had taken advantage of that weakness, especially Princess Priya. Thinking this, a cold hardness replaced the pain on her face. But now another face emerged in her mind, a face that softened her heart as soon as she remembered it. Her mother, Saraswati Devi. Princess Shivangi took a deep breath, and her memories once again returned to the past. Princess Shivangi's mother, Saraswati Devi, was an extraordinary woman. She was not only beautiful, but also extremely talented. Dance was her soul. When she stepped onto the stage, it felt as if the music flowed with her every step. Every gesture, every expression, and every movement mesmerized the audience. Her name was famous far and wide. People used to travel long distances just to see her dance. Her beauty was no less than that of an apsara. Long black hair, an attractive personality, and the depth hidden in her eyes could attract anyone. But her greatest quality was her nature. She was kind, she was humble, and she was always ready to help others. For this reason, almost everyone who knew her respected her. Once, a grand gathering was organized in the Pairav Empire. Artists, musicians, and dancers had come from far and wide to that gathering. The entire palace was illuminated with lights. Hundreds of lamps and chandeliers were lighting up the whole auditorium. It was at that gathering that Maharaj Abhay Pratap Singh saw Saraswati Devi for the first time. When Saraswati Devi reached the stage, the entire auditorium fell silent. Then the music began, and her feet started to dance. Her dance was so beautiful that people began to hold their breath and watch her. Even Maharaj Abhay Pratap could not take his eyes off her. For the first time, a special interest was visible in his eyes for someone. Even after the gathering ended, he kept thinking about Saraswati Devi for a long time. Gradually, his interest turned into attraction, and then attraction into infatuation. Eventually, he proposed to Saraswati Devi to stay in his palace. At that time, the Maharaj had no wife. He had always preferred to live alone. Politics, war, and governance were his life. But after seeing Saraswati Devi for the first time, someone had come into his life who had touched his heart. Saraswati Devi also respected the Maharaj. Gradually, the closeness between them began to grow. There was no formal love proposal between them. No big promises were made. But still, an unspoken bond was formed. A bond that both felt. Time passed, and during this time, Saraswati Devi became pregnant. When Maharaj Abhay Pratap learned about this, he did not react in any special way. He showed neither happiness nor anger. He remained calm as always. But Saraswati Devi was confident that when the child was born, everything would change. She believed that the Maharaj would surely accept their offspring. But perhaps fate had written something else for them. At that time, war broke out on the borders of the Bhairav Empire. The Maharaj had to lead the army himself, and this war proved to be much longer than expected. 1 month, 2 months, then several months passed, and before they knew it, 9 months were complete. Saraswati Devi gave birth to an extremely beautiful baby girl. That girl was nothing less than a miracle. Her hair was as white as silver, and her eyes were deep blue like her father's. As soon as she saw her daughter, tears welled up in Saraswati Devi's eyes. She held her daughter close to her chest, and at that moment, Princess Shivangi was born. But she did not know that with the birth of her daughter, a tragedy had also been written in her fate that would change her entire life. Princess Shivangi was born. With that little girl in her arms, tears of joy flowed from Saraswati Devi's eyes. She lovingly touched her tiny fingers. That little girl was looking at her mother with her innocent eyes. At that moment, Saraswati Devi felt as if her entire world had come together in her arms. She kissed her daughter's forehead and said in a soft voice, "My child, my Shivangi." Her voice was filled with love and affection. The maidens present in the room were also smiling at the sight. Everyone was admiring the beauty of the newborn princess. But at that moment, something was happening outside the palace that was about to change everything. Suddenly, a noise was heard from afar. At first, the sound was faint, But within moments, it grew louder. The sound of horses' hooves, people's screams, and the clashing of weapons. The entire atmosphere was becoming terrifying. Everyone in the room panicked. Just then, a soldier rushed into the room. His face was pale with fear. He gasped and said, "Devi, the palace is under attack." Hearing this, silence fell in the room. Saraswati Devi's face changed. She immediately held her daughter even tighter to her chest. Concern was clearly visible in her eyes. "Where is the Maharaj?" she asked anxiously. The soldier bowed his head and said, "The Maharaj has not yet returned from the battlefield." Hearing this, Saraswati Devi's heart sank. She understood how serious the situation was. Most of the soldiers guarding the palace had gone to war with the Maharaj. Only a limited security force was present in the palace, and the enemy had taken advantage of this opportunity to attack. The screams from outside were continuously increasing. Hearing the clashing of swords and the cries of dying people, it felt as if the entire palace had turned into hell. Saraswati Devi looked at her most trusted maid, Nauni. There was fear in her eyes, but more than that, there was concern for her daughter. She said in a trembling voice, "Nauni, save my child." Nauni's eyes filled with tears. She immediately bowed her head. "I will protect the princess even at the cost of my life, Devi." Saraswati Devi quickly pointed towards a hidden part of the room. There was a small concealed chamber behind the wall, known to very few. She signaled Nauni to go there. But just then, the door of the room burst open with a loud bang. Some enemy soldiers rushed in. Their swords were stained with blood. They had cruel smiles on their faces. The maidens present in the room screamed in fear. Saraswati Devi immediately stood up. Although she had just become a mother, and her body was extremely weak, she decided to protect her daughter. She looked at Nauni and said in a stern voice, "Go now, take the princess and get out of here." Tears began to flow from Nauni's eyes, but she knew this was not the time to be emotional. She quickly took little Shivangi in her arms. Shivangi was peacefully sleeping at that time. She had no idea that her world was about to be shattered just hours after her birth. Nauni hurried towards the secret chamber. Meanwhile, Saraswati Devi stood in front of the enemies. There was no fear in her eyes now, only the resolve to save her daughter. A few moments later, a sword gleamed in the room, and Saraswati Devi fell to the ground, seriously injured. Blood began to flow from her chest. Her breaths gradually became weaker. But even in her dying moments, her eyes were fixed in the direction where her daughter was safely hidden. A faint smile appeared on her lips. She was content that at least her daughter would be saved. Slowly, her eyes closed, and Saraswati Devi took her last breath. Meanwhile, after the war ended, when Maharaj Abhay Pratap Singh received news of the attack on the palace, he immediately returned. He rushed towards the palace, but by the time he arrived, everything was over. The palace was stained with blood. Dead bodies lay everywhere. There were signs of struggle on the walls, and the smell of death filled the air. The Maharaj quickly entered. His eyes were searching for someone. Then, suddenly, his gaze fell on a familiar figure lying on the ground. It was Saraswati Devi, motionless, lifeless, covered in blood. The Maharaj stopped right there. For a few moments, he stared at her without moving. There was no expression on his face, but his fists were clenched. A deep pain welled up in his eyes. Just then, he heard the sound of a newborn baby crying. That sound broke the silence of the entire atmosphere. The Maharaj looked in that direction. There stood Nauni. In her arms was a tiny baby. Nauni stepped forward and respectfully said, "Maharaj, this is the daughter of Saraswati Devi. She was born today." The Maharaj's gaze fell on the baby for the first time. Her silver-white hair and blue eyes clearly indicated that she was his offspring. But there was no particular expression on his face. He just looked at her for a moment. Then he looked away, and in a calm voice said, "From today, you will take care of her. She will stay here." Saying just that, he moved on. He picked up Saraswati Devi's lifeless body in his arms, and without looking back, he left. Nauni stood there. Tears were in her eyes. She looked at the little Shivangi in her arms, and her heart filled with sorrow. Today, this child had lost her mother and her father. had not even deemed it necessary to hold her in his arms. Was this the moment that created a distance between Shivangi and her father that could never be bridged? Did the Maharaj truly hate his daughter, or was there a secret behind it that no one knew? And the biggest question, what was hidden in Saraswati Devi's past that even the Maharaj could never uncover? To find out, read the next chapter.